guys, HCGChica. So this video is all about what to do when you feel like you have to cheat when you're on the HCG diet. So we already discussed how to fix a cheat on HCG if it's already happened, and we also discussed why cheating on HCG is, such a not good idea. So we all know this, I know this, but I still cheated on HCG a few times. It doesn't mean that I didn't get to my ultimate goal, I did. It's just that it took me a little longer. And same goes for you. And that's okay. I want to share with you a really nice insight from this book, 100 Ways to Motivate Yourself by Steve Chandler. And he mentioned something interesting. It's on page 70. He says, progress towards your goals is never going to be a straight line. It will always be a bumpy line. You'll go up and then come down a little. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We've heard that, of course, many times, but there's truth to that. People get discouraged when they slide a step back. They think they're failing and that they've lost it, but they have not. They're simply in step with the natural rhythm of progress. So I thought that was very insightful. And it's kind of a good premise to the whole reason for this post, which is that most likely, as you go through this whole process, some of you have 50 pounds to lose, some 100. Most people who go on this protocol don't have a measly 5 or 10 pounds to lose. That you can probably easily lose on your own. But chunks of weight, 50, 100 pounds, 150 pounds, some of you, that's a big chunk, right? It's going to take some time, even on HCG. So there's bound to be points where you make mistakes. So a couple reasons for that, for why you will find yourself sometimes with, in the throes of cheating on HCG is, one, HCG is like a psychological boot camp for your relationship with food. Many of us just don't even have any idea until we go on this protocol that we had this totally screwed up relationship with food that wouldn't be easy to change. And for many of us, it's been going on for years. So, to expect overnight change and for us to instantly be 100% successful at it, it's just not realistic, right? Except that when we're on HCG, technically you have to be 100%, on protocol, so that presents a problem, right? So here you are realizing, oh wow, I have to make this change, but you're on a protocol where you kind of have to be perfect to get the exact perfect results. So you're gonna mess up. So knowing that this type of stuff's gonna happen, what can you do if you just, can't handle it one day and just totally break down? We're just gonna talk about ideas on how to cheat smarter. The second thing, I can count, 1, 2. The second reason we might sometimes find ourselves, cheating is because circumstances come up that we weren't planning on, and it kind of throws your whole day off where you didn't have your food ready because you had your day planned one way, and then your day ended up going another day, all because of one phone call or whatever the case may be. I see this happen all the time. One example might be you plan to come home and make your healthy P2 lunch, but then you get a phone call that you have to rush over to your grandma's and take her to a doctor appointment because the person who was supposed to take her, got sick with the flu. And so you're not going to be home for another 3 or 4 hours, and you're already getting hungry, So it's like, what do you do in situations like that? And, sometimes you would think like, oh, that doesn't happen enough to bother talking about it. But actually it does. It's, when I watch vlogs of different HCGers on this protocol and you read in the forums and whatever, there's constantly life happening. Life is always happening. As soon as you think things are going to settle down and be calm again, some other crazy thing happens, and it with a family member or a friend or whatever the case may be, and you don't have control over those things, right? So in cases like that, what can you do to make the best choice under their circumstance? So let's talk about some solutions. Basically, what we want to do in a nutshell is to cheat smarter. And, in talking about this, I'm definitely not supporting it or giving people a license, be like, oh yeah, no big deal, just go cheat, whatever. I'm not trying to do that. And some may accuse me of that, and honestly, I don't care. I am in tune with what a woman goes through when she goes through this weight loss process and has had an eating disorder of some sort. Some of you out there may be very health conscious eaters who have always eaten healthy and exercised, but due to, you know, a hormone issue, you just could never lose weight, or you gained weight despite being completely responsible. So for some of you, I've noticed it seems to be a little more straightforward. The protocol's a little bit easier because you follow it. You've always been responsible with food in that sense. You didn't have an addiction perhaps. And so it was okay for you and not a big deal. However, that was not my experience. And that's why this type of stuff to me is important to talk about, just because of what that quote I started out with from Steve Chandler talked about, is that, you know, this progress isn't going to happen in a straight line. Many of us are overcoming some pretty big things in our life. We're not just going through a transformation of our body, we're going through a transformation with our mind and our emotions as well. So that process is going to mean that you don't do the right thing sometimes, you know? And if you don't have the tools to lessen the consequences by cheating smarter, or the tools to know how to think about it, it's going to be more likely that you'll give up. So that's why I feel it's important to talk about this stuff. So obviously, I think you should do whatever you can to do the protocol properly. It's the healthiest way to do it. You'll get the best results if you do it that way. So of course, number one choice, do it right. But if things come up and you don't do it right at times, let's talk about some of the ways that we can deal with it. You know, even to this day in regular life, I overeat sometimes. Sometimes I get too full. I'm still not perfect. I feel like I'm light years away from my original starting place with how I ate and what I ate and when and why. I feel like I'm, you know, completely changed in that regard, but I'm still not perfect. But because I have learned to make wiser choices about what I consume, there is no damage really. It's like you can't really gain weight from eating a smoothie that's mostly ice and has stevia, right? So, you know, sometimes I may be eating for an emotional reason because I don't feel well and I get a little too full, but it's on a smoothie with, you know, almost no carbs and no sugar. So in that sense, I don't have to worry about it ruining my results as I continue, you know, to work on the reasons why I eat, because of course that's the best thing, is to get to that place where food is fuel. It's not that I think food shouldn't be enjoyable though, because, you know, being able to eat a meal with a family and enjoy that's enjoyable, and that's you're eating because it's an enjoyable activity, you know, so it's not just for fuel. But just still learning to keep all that in balance, it takes time. So the first few things I'm going to mention, you may think to yourself like, okay, that just doesn't cut it. You know, if you're in that spot where you're like, I'm going to cheat, I don't care, I don't feel good, and I'm gonna eat something that I want. You know, these suggestions might feel like that's not gonna fill that need, right? But just at least give them consideration, or at least try them first before you move on to the next, you know, step in the line of cheating, okay? So the first one is basically just eating more P2 foods, especially phase 2 proteins and phase 2 vegetables. You know, sometimes if your dose of HCG is wrong, making you extra hungry, it's going to make it so that you really do need more food, and that's why you're struggling. And sometimes if you have more activity on a certain day, you know, I don't actually feel good exercising on HCG. Some of you do. Others of you don't know yet, and you're trying to decide, and so you might be trying to incorporate it. And by and large, what I see is if you do incorporate activity, you know, a certain amount on HCG, you may need to compensate by having a little more calories. So if you're kind of in that middle spot and you don't know what's going on, and maybe you did extra gardening or something, I don't know, and you're feeling really crummy, it's, you know, maybe your body is needing a little more nutrition. So that's a good line of defense. Just eat more P2 proteins, more P2 veggies. You know, if your calories end up being close to 1,000 in the end, double what it would normally be, you may not actually lose weight, but you won't be gaining fat. So in that sense, it's like you won't be backtracking. It's just that you won't lose weight for that day, you know. So, but that's better, right? That's better than just going all out to the chocolate cake. So that's the first thing to do. The other reason that it's good to eat extra protein when you're not feeling well in that regard is because sometimes that is actually one of the things your body's needing. in order to stop the craving that you might be having. So having a little extra chicken or shrimp or whatever, just try that first. Wait 15 minutes, you know, and see how you feel. So that would be one of the first things to do. The second thing I want to suggest is trying some miracle noodles. Or shirataki noodles. They're pretty much the same thing, it's just Miracle Noodles is a brand name. I will have links in the post to where you can buy them online. You can buy Miracle Noodles online. And then shirataki noodles you can purchase locally more inexpensively, mostly at like Asian markets and ethnic markets, and they'll be in the refrigerated section. I'm going to link to an article I wrote about why I feel that the Miracle shirataki noodles are okay on HCG. Just to be honest with you guys, I've eaten those by choice almost every day on my last 3 rounds of HCG. So definitely did not hamper my ability to, you know, to maintain my fat loss. And, you know, I have 18% body fat, which is really pretty good for a woman, you know. So it didn't hurt me in that respect. So the reason I want to suggest them though is because they're very filling, they have a different texture, and when you combine them with meat and veggies into like a meal, it makes a pretty substantial meal. What I used to do is make a soup with the protein and the vegetable, and then of course there's the water with the, you know, that makes a broth, and then the noodles. And I mean, it would be pretty filling, and if you eat that on HCG, you're going to be full, and most likely you're not going to be able to eat anything else after it. Now these noodles, if you don't know about them, they don't have any calories. The reason is because they're actually made up of just soluble fiber. They're made from what's called the konjac root. It's a root, I believe, in Japan, and so it's kind of like cardboard in the sense that your body doesn't digest it as calories, so it's just 0 calories. But it is bulky, so it'll fill you up, you know, for a little while. Now one thing to keep in mind with these, if you do try them, is you may see a gain on the scale when you eat them, but it's not fat. What happens is you're eating quite a bit of extra bulk, more than normal, and it absorbs water. So you're gonna be full, and there's gonna be a lot more in your intestines. So the next morning, you could even possibly be up a pound if you have it in soup, because, you know, usually when you have soup, there's more sodium because you salt it to taste. So for that reason, you may have a gain. But again, my personal feeling is it is not fat. It's just the fiber, the bulk in your body that hasn't exited yet. So just one thing to keep in mind and be aware of. The third thing I want to suggest is try making a P2 dessert recipe. I'm going to link to a few of the ones I had come up with recently. One is, one's actually from a while ago, which is my little 8-calorie lemon slushy. And then I have a new one, which is the 0-calorie hibiscus slushy made from hibiscus petals. It's really, really good. And I also have a little post I had done about basically a do-it-yourself stevia soda. Basically the healthiest version of a soda you can make, where it really is just stevia as the sweetener. And then the last one was some P2 strawberries that are frozen with chocolate stevia on them, and they're really, really good. So I'm going to link to those. You know, again, these are treats that don't really have much calories, but they are filling temporarily, and they do have like a yummy fruity taste, so it might fill that need that you're feeling, and it's pretty much guilt-free, especially with those slushies. I mean, they're really mostly ice, but the flavor from the hibiscus or the lemon and the stevia, it has a lot of flavor. So that might be the first thing to try before you head to something more sinister. And the fourth thing is, you know, I hate to say it, but a diet soda can really get you through a difficult time here and there. The reason I don't really like to mention it is because I think that the diet sodas are habit forming. I don't think they're good to drink on a regular basis, even in regular life. But I'm mentioning them because I do feel that they were a part of me getting through a few rough spots when I was on HCG. And to me, it was better to have a little stevia diet soda than to, you know, descend on the deviled eggs at a gathering. So a long time ago, I did remove Diet Coke. I used to be a Diet Coke addict. Another one of my many vices. And so I took that out. It's been a couple years now that I've had maybe 3 or 4 in the last couple years, but pretty much 100% removed. You know, I did all the research on aspartame, and it's, you know, I think most of us realize it's not healthy for you and all that. So I did take that out, but before I had taken it out, my first round of HCG, I was at a point when I was going through my sugar addiction withdrawals where it was like, quit HCG and eat a whole chocolate cake, or have a Diet Coke. Quit HCG and have a whole chocolate cake, or have a Diet Coke. So what do you do in that scenario? You know, water was not an option. Those were the 2 choices for me at that point. So I went with the Diet Coke. Looking back, if I could do it over, I would like to, well, I mean, of course now, you know, there's the stevia sodas, which I'll talk about in a second. Although who knows, in 20 years, maybe we'll prove those are totally unhealthy too. So it's hard to say, but you know, so it's not the best choice, but it was better than the other choice. So sometimes you have to make decisions like that. And so for me, it got me through a rough time. It would have been better to just be all perfect on the protocol, but I wasn't able to do that. I mean, I was going through a major emotional crisis, seriously. I mean, it was horrible. I even called my mom. Hey Mom. I called my mom, I was like, what do I do? Like, I have to have chocolate cake. And you know, it sounds kind of funny, but I don't know, if any of you guys have dealt with a binge eating disorder, you know what I'm talking about, and it's actually not funny when you're going through it, you know. So, and I'm glad that I don't deal with that anymore. But part of getting me to this place was having some of those rough patches where, you know, I picked another choice that still wasn't the best, but it was better than the other option. So that's why I'm mentioning this. For gatherings especially, you know, when you can't avoid a gathering while you're on HCG, I really found that having a camera in hand, that really helps. Camera and a little can of stevia soda. There's 2 brands. There's Zevia and Blue Sky soda. They're both made, they're called stevia sodas, but the majority of the sweetness is really made up with erythritol, which is a type of sugar alcohol that a lot of people are using these days. So just so you guys know that. And there's some other brands out there as well now. In fact, I'm going to do a post on all the different ones that I've been coming across lately to show you guys. So that really was helpful. You know, and in a gathering, I might have had a couple of those one night. But again, I just want to mention the caution here, though, is that you don't want to get into the habit of having that every day on HCG and even in regular life. All sodas have citric acid. It's really acidic. It's not really good for your body to have all that acidic stuff coming in all the time. So, you know, ideally you want to stick with healthier options, but in a pinch, to help you get through this in the long run, I did find that to be helpful at times. To me, it's really about balancing imperfection, which is not possible, with what happens in life and making it so that you can get through what you need to do. The next one is actually more of a preemptive measure, and that is to make sure that you don't get too hungry. And we're going to talk about a couple ways to do that, to not get too hungry. So what happens is, I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but you know, even off of HCG, if you don't eat for too long and your body's not used to it and you get really hungry, you'll end up like stuffing your face, you know, with whatever you find, the nearest thing, and like a bunch of it, you know, because you're like so ravenous. And then after you're like, whoa, you know, and it's like if you had eaten an hour or half an hour sooner, you may not have needed nearly as many calories. It's just because you got so hungry. So then it's like you just totally overcompensated out of that, you know, desperate feeling in your stomach, in your head. So this is especially true with HCG. When you're on a good dose of HCG, overall, I have a whole post on dosing in HCG, by the way. It's one of the #1 important things with this protocol, so I'll link to that in this article. But even on a good dose of HCG, you're still gonna be hungry at meal times. That's why you are still eating 500 calories. You can't just fast on this protocol and feel fine. You are gonna get hungry for those 500 calories. The idea is that you're really not hungry for more than that, is what you're going for when you try to find the best dose for you. So, but the thing is if you wait too long, you know, to have your lunch or whatever, you know, and it's maybe 2 o'clock and, you know, you're on the 500 calorie diet, you're not used to going so long without food, you might get to that kind of ravenous feeling point, and it can be so much easier to feel like you want to cheat and to give in and to eat the wrong foods depending on where you are. Especially if you're out and about, and you could just completely blow it. Whereas if you had just eaten like a little bit of something a half hour before, it could potentially prevent that feeling from happening. So that's just another thing, is to try to not get to that point. And so that actually goes along with the next couple things I was going to mention. One was basically to keep some P2 fruits in the car, you know, like apples and oranges. Those pretty much you could leave some in the car, like at all times in a bag or something. So that way, if you end up being in that situation where, you know, someone calls and you have to rush over to your grandma's or do something when you were planning on going home, you'll have a P2 snack at least to tide you over until you do get back to your regular routine or back home or whatever. Now, the other thing I was going to suggest was, when you do leave the house, try to always bring like a phase 2 snack with you, like maybe some raw veggies like cherry tomatoes. That's a good one that you can eat raw. It doesn't have to be cooked. That's not a fruit. Well, actually, tomatoes are a fruit, but whatever. You know what I mean? And yeah, so it's like, even if you're leaving the house and you think you're going to be home in time, just as another preemptive measure, maybe just grab a bag of cherry tomatoes. Just so that you have them in case something changes, somebody calls and your whole day gets changed. At least you'll have something to tide you over until you're able to, you know, get to your other protocol foods, you know. So those were my ideas on that. I wanted to talk real quick about less stellar options of cheating on HCG, but that they're not horrible. And one of those is to eat more P2 fruits. I'm not a big fan of that for, you know, the regular protocol, of course, because it's more sugar and carbs and can kind of contribute to more cravings. But, you know, just like with the Diet Coke and chocolate cake illustration, it's the better choice. If it's that or a pan of brownies, pick some extra strawberries, you know, and put some stevia on them. Or, you know, apple. Sometimes what I do with an apple, for my apple, I'll slice it like super thin. Somehow when I do that, it makes it feel like a lot more. And so I would slice them really thin, spread them out, sprinkle a little bit of stevia and a little bit of cinnamon on them, and quite enjoyable. And when they're sliced thin, there's a lot of pieces, so it's like you can really enjoy that. And you know, if you have to eat an extra one day, again, it's possible you may not lose weight, but it's minimal enough that you may not actually like gain fat. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is when it comes to cheat, I'm not going to be on here being like, hey, a smart way to cheat is to have 1 piece of chocolate cake instead of 5. I'm not going to be telling you guys that on this video. So pretty much all of the cheating options I gave you were fairly healthy ways to go where you're not going to actually end up being in trouble on the protocol. But that's really the idea here, is to know that you're going to be in that place and try these other things first before you go the pork chops sauteed in butter route. You know, I've done that. So those are the ideas to try first. As far as the worst things you can do on HCG that are gonna take a few days to reverse, eating fats on the diet, it's the worst choice, and eating a lot of calories, you know, like just totally binging. I don't think I have to even really tell you guys that. Regardless of the fact that that's true, many of us are gonna do that. Like I said, my 5th round, I had a sauteed pork chop day. I think I had at least 2 sauteed in butter, and for some reason I was craving cashews, and I had, you know, I don't know, a few handfuls of those one day. So not the best choice, and it did take me, you know, 2 to 3 days to kind of move past that, like re-lose the weight I gained and then feel like I was moving on. With HCG being as unique as it is, sometimes you can stall out your weight loss for several days if you cheat too badly on it. And to me, the main thing is really trying to avoid that high calorie binge thing or the high fat thing from HCG. So, you know, if it happens, it happens. Remember, in the end, it doesn't mean you're not gonna get to your goal. It just means it's gonna take you longer, so no big deal. So, and if it does happen, you can read my post on how to fix a cheat, and that will be linked to in the article. Because we can find ways to get past that as quickly as possible. So anyway, I hope you guys found that helpful, and you can find me on Facebook, HCGChica. Of course, I have a lot more stuff on hCGChica.com, my blog, and Instagram, HCGChica. Those are the two social media places that I'm probably most active. And that's it. So, all right, you guys take care. Bye.